sister's a therapist and I tell jokes. We both want to help all kinds of folks.
Hello, and welcome to My Sister's a Therapist. This is a show about two sisters. One of them is me, stand-up comedian Virginia Jones, and the other is my sister, Laura Ryan.
Hello, I'm Laura Ryan. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, but my main credit is sister to sassy snickerer, Virginia Jones.
I am in a big show in Portland. It's being printed up in the Mercury, so I am temporarily famous.
Were you listed as sassy snickerer?
No, they didn't take advantage of your many, many wonderful brand names for me. They just went with Virginia Jones, genius of comedy.
Boring.
I talk about my comedy all the time at work when I'm in a published newspaper. You're really doing it.
I've been doing it.
In sad news, my old design director from Nike found me on TikTok. So you're doing comedy full time now? I'm like, no, bro. I did that.
Define full time.
I did that. I was broke as hell. I didn't like it. Now I'm not. But ironically, I'm doing way more comedy than I did when I was full time.
Is that ironic? Don't
you think? Laura, I understand that you have a little something from Zach's Corner this week.
I most certainly do. This is an exciting one, guys. Hold on to your bootstraps. Get yourself ready. First, I'm going to reference a previous email that he sent because it relates to what he's saying here. In a previous email, if you haven't heard this in another one of our podcast episodes, Zach says, my roommate came home during Zach's Corner and I had to explain, no, they are speaking directly to me. No, you don't understand. So then he responds to his own email. He's quoting his roommate. I never doubted you, she said, walking carefully away as I pointed to my phone during your latest episode and said, that's me, don't you see? I know these people in my phone. They're talking to me in particular. And Zach says, also, I am excited to figure out how many times I can work it into a conversation that I use soap. He said, I'm going dancing tonight. Maybe I'll lean in and say, don't you love using soap?
Zach, I want you to know that your relationship with us is the only important relationship in your life. The other people who are judging you for thinking that we're talking to you through the radio, they're not your real friends. We want you to self-isolate and only listen to My Sister's a Therapist.
But keep using soap. Here's another one of Zach's lines for the clurbs. Using soap to keep my body clean is one of the best parts of my regular and effective hygiene habits.
Every time I've hung out with Zach in life, smells like an angel.
He smells like he's used soap. I responded by saying, Zach, you're really onto something. I suggested that you make a really big deal when you return from the bathroom to tell anyone who'll listen that you love the smell of the soap in there. I also think on any dating profile, all men who are worthy need to specify that they never skip the cheeks in the shower. And then Zach said, I'll begin performatively washing my mouth out with soap at the bar.
What can I get you? What do you have with soap in it? Excuse me? I'd like a rub-a-dub-dub. What is that? 2 parts vodka, 1 part Dawn washing liquid.
Another casual mic drop moment that you could have in a conversation would be always cleaning my cheeks. If you're a first-time listener, every week, one of us picks the topic and the other person gets to sit here like a dumb stump on a log. This week, I have a little bit of intel because Virginia asked me to watch something. Virginia, what's our topic today?
We've got a timely topic. We are talking about Louis Theroux's Manosphere documentary, available now on Netflix.
I was very excited to see that Louis is now expanded to Netflix because I have a lot of history with our friend Louis Theroux. I was married to a British and he forced me to watch all of his documentaries.
And Laura's in love with him.
I was, but after the Manosphere documentary, did you notice he's losing hair in really strange places? And I was kind of weirded out by it. Also, the color was really patchy.
He's older. We're all older.
This is my Womanosphere POV. I feel like
no balds.
No balds. And just put yourself up on a shelf. We don't want to see it.
Laura, what previous documentaries have you seen by Louis Theroux?
I had the DVD set of Weird Weekends. Louis's dad is an American. His mom's a British. His cousin is Justin Theroux. I listened to a whole podcast episode of Louis's podcast, which is called the Louis Theroux Podcast. He interviews Justin Theroux, and it's really cute to hear the two of them talk about all their childhood memories. Justin pronounces it Theroux instead of Theroux. Here are some of the topics from Weird Weekends that have stuck with me. He did an episode about Jimmy Savile, who was a children's TV presenter. He used to have a show called Jimmy'll Fix It, and it was a show for little kids. I guess post-mortem, everyone discovered that Jimmy Savile was a big-time pedo. Obviously, Louis didn't know that at the time. I remember watching the documentary and thinking, there's something wrong with this man. He lived in his mother's house until she passed. He had a closet full of his mother's clothing, which was weird. And he says this weird thing that always stuck in my mind. I hate kids. I don't like them at all. And Louis like, but I know you do like kids. I've seen you on your show and I've seen you interact with kids in public. Oh, well, you just don't want the questions to come. That was a real head scratcher. But now looking back,
Looking back, it makes a lot more sense.
I remember that episode. I remember the Afrikaner separatists episode. We did a whole thing about these Dutch Afrikaan racist people. That was super weird. Survivalists. Refer back to our Trolls and Dolls episode. He does a whole episode called Bangkok Marriage. He's interviewing somewhat well-to-do British white guys who go to Bangkok to try to find a woman who will marry them. He also did one about a brothel where I learned a lot about brothels in Vegas. Of course, during the pandemonium, he decided that he was going to do a podcast because he couldn't leave the house. And it turned out to be a really, really popular podcast that he's continued with. He has a very interesting journalistic style. It's very coy and kind of cutesy. He can really get anyone to say anything, which is kind of wild. It was interesting in the Manosphere documentary. These guys were a little bit more defensive, but I've seen him sit with neo-Nazis. He acts really dumb. He's just got this really cute way of existing. Most people find it charming.
I had not watched his content before. I had seen him rapping with Chicken Shop Date.
My money don't jiggle, jiggle. It folds.
What I saw him doing in this documentary is being an everyman, not explicitly sticking up for the liberal elite, but voicing a reasonable question and saying,
Right.
oh, this thing that you're putting up as fact is not factual. No one believes this, and trying to interject the average person's point of view, not coming at it from the same angle as the Manosphere guys, which is super combative and confrontational, because then that's going to just be a fight. So he is an observer, commentator, and he just wants to get in and see how everything works. The first person he talks to in the film is Harrison Sullivan,
HS Tiki Taki,
who got to where he is by filming workouts. That's where he came from, being a personal trainer, sharing tips on getting big. A universal good in the Manosphere is physical toughness and muscularity and vascularity. He really espouses that.
A lot of your identity is based on your appearance, right?
You see him in a lot of moods. In the beginning, he's a little nervous, but curious. He has a couple confrontational conversations with Louis Theroux that do well online. Then he is inviting him more into his home. In the end, gets very paranoid and very keyed up. He came to the Manosphere giving boys advice on how to be super ripped and packed and vascular. That's a through line through all of the Manosphere, is that you need to be jacked.
Looks maxing.
It's strange because your body at 50 is not going to be what it was when you were 20. It's not going to be what it was when you were 30. At some point, these guys are going to have to stop working out to this degree, unless they're Jack LaLanne.
That's a good reference for the kids.
It's a good modern reference.
Right.
Eventually, you're going to start having blood pressure issues. Eventually, you're going to tear something. You can't have a soft body and be part of the Manosphere. That's tenet one. I worked for a famous podcast couple, and they were decidedly not in the Manosphere, but there was a lot in this documentary that was very familiar to me, mostly in the constant contact with their fans, interacting through chat, live streaming, constantly trying to think of more content to create and put up. At one point, the host said he was on antidepressants. He got a lot of pushback from young men saying, what you need is to work out and be ripped, and that's going to solve your mental problems. And I can assure you that it does not.
That was a really sad moment that I noticed in the documentary, where there was a guy there who was saying, we don't believe in depression, and then in the next sentence admits that his brother committed suicide.
He needs to be successful to be happy for
to make
his
up
brother.
for that. Yeah.
Right.
But bro, you think your brother didn't have depression?
It sounded like a real Scientologist viewpoint of, you're just living in the moment. We reject the idea that there's trauma. We reject the idea that there's depression. All of these boys who listen to this show, who participate in the Manosphere, seem to be pretty heavily traumatized dudes. In all of the hosts that Louis talks to, there's been domestic violence, parental abandonment, mentally ill mothers.
I was looking it up. Sneeko comes from an intact family. Myron Gaines, the fresh and fit guy, he comes from an intact family, but none of the other people interviewed do. Everybody else comes from a single parent household, which, as we know, means raised by a woman.
Right. Because the other kind is pretty unusual. It's funny how transparent Harrison Sullivan's moves are to me. The first thing he does when he meets Louis Theroux is he judges his body as if they're going to be in a physical fight. Doesn't look like much. When he feels attacked and cornered by Louis Theroux, he brings up his connection with Jimmy Savile, which we've discussed that Louis had a show with before anybody knew that Jimmy Savile had victimized hundreds and hundreds of children. Yesterday, fresh update, because of the Manosphere documentary, known scumbag Piers Morgan had Harrison Sullivan on his show, and Harrison Sullivan brought up the Epstein files and that he knew Ghislaine Maxwell. When that doesn't quite push Piers Morgan over the edge, he insults his wife, and then the interview is over. That's just one of his moves. He criticizes your body, then he'll criticize your partner, and he will dig up a connection between
you and some sort of drama.
Sex criminal.
Do enough people have sex criminal ties to be able to use that consistently?
I mean, I think if you're in Hollywood, you can find a connection. There's plenty to go around.
These days, it's pretty easy. I can probably just assume that most men interviewing anyone are prominently in the Epstein files.
Harrison is the most disingenuous out of all the hosts.
I don't think that's true. I think they're all incredibly disingenuous.
He's constantly castigate Jewish people. He's managing OnlyFans models. He's making money off of OnlyFans. He's having OnlyFans models on his shows to cross promote. Women are allowed to be in his universe as long as they're lightly clothed and subservient. But then he says, if my daughter did this, I would disown her. If my son were gay, I would disown him. He keeps coming back to money's the only thing. Money's the main thing and nothing else matters. And I think this is an overarching sickness of our society. If you truly believe that money is the only thing that matters, it will allow you to do anything. It will allow you to marry people you are not attracted to. It will allow you to do jobs that you find morally repugnant to yourself. If money's the only thing.
That's how you end up emailing Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not going to say all the men in the Epstein files, but I think many of the men in the Epstein files, their biggest crime was that they were very ambitious and wanted money.
And wanted connections with other ambitious people. That's how Epstein saw himself. He saw himself as a connector. The fact that he was bringing rich and famous people in with the promise with sex slaves was just part of it.
An email that has come to light in the Epstein files is an actor who's saying, Jeffrey, I'd really like to work on this project. I understand that you have a connection to the project and you know the person who's producing it. Can you show him my tape? I guess he did show it to the guy and he said, hey, let me just give you some pointers on your acting. Apparently, Jeffrey Epstein also called it like it was.
Acting coach.
He was many things to many men.
Because Harrison has no moral center. He says, I don't agree with everything I say. I'm clip farming because he is keeping the empire going to keep fresh meat in the mill.
Needs the content to be moving.
He's shooting content for 7 hours a day. And I've seen this phenomenon many times. People have radio shows or they have some huge amount of time to fill. They'll say things that they don't mean just because they got to say something.
A lot of his content is about shock value. He's doing a real Howard Stern vibe where he's just shooting out any offensive or horrible thing to see if people will bite.
His content is workout tips, fine. And then it's hitting on women, chatting up women on the street. When he runs out of that stuff, he's trying to humiliate people. The problem that every great cult leader comes to is that you can't control your followers. In one scene, one of his circle has been in contact with a man online and said, hey, let's have sex. The man shows up and what Harrison has planned is humiliation, pedo prank, we gotcha. And instead what happens is that his followers start physically assaulting the man. Louis is shocked. Harrison says he's shocked and that he's taking it down, and yet he clips it out and posts it because it's going to go viral. Having a man get out of the car expecting sex and instead being assaulted, that's virality. If you just keep escalating and escalating and escalating, eventually the baseline stuff of I'm working out or I'm talking to pretty girls, that's not going to get it anymore. You have to be saying, Jews are running the media. I need to marry a virgin. Being gay is wrong. He thinks of it as showbiz, but his followers don't.
I'm getting all these tips on how to go viral, and I think I'm going to start putting all of them into practice.
Because we're women, our key to virality is going to be being sex workers and taking a real Betty Blue approach.
And then he hates Betty Blue for doing exactly what he's doing.
He hates and shames her, but he has her on his show because it's good for content. Betty Blue is a sex worker and an OnlyFans content creator. She is famous for having sex with 1,000 guys in a day. Last year, she had a very viral concept called Betty Blue's Petting Zoo. And what she was offering that she would be tied up, whatever happens, happens.
So she wanted to be essayed.
It's volunteer essay. There's a lot of great viral content with men announcing to their partners that they were going to go to the petting zoo and being surprised when their partners were not into it. It got shut down because guess what? In the United States, volunteer essay is not legal. He is taking advantage of her followership and her clout, actively hates her and shames her. And he keeps doing this childish, well, yeah, I say homophobic things, but I have a gay friend.
I'm saying all this anti-Semitic stuff, but that guy over there is Jewish.
So it's fine.
It's the ultimate old white guy response.
I have a black guy at work I'm friends with.
There's a guy at work who sits somewhat near me, and sometimes we talk for a few minutes. So it's okay that I say all the racist things in the world. It's the ultimate white guy defense. I think Tiki Taki himself is biracial.
Yeah. His dad is a black rugby player who he met in the doc. There's a scene with his mom that's very sad. She is a smart, capable feminist woman. She's reacting to him saying things like he has to marry a virgin or women aren't good for anything. Not you, Mom.
I found it to be really scary because obviously I'm trying to raise my son as a feminist because I know that she didn't raise him like that. There's a point where Louis Theroux is talking to him and he says, does your mother agree with the things that you say? And he's, no, she doesn't agree with anything I say. She believes that women should have equality. She believes all races are one, and she's not racist. She's not homophobic, and she doesn't hate women. I just think to myself, oh my gosh, I have spent my whole life trying to indoctrinate this kid. What if it all goes wrong?
And something that you've experienced directly is that as soon as your kid got keys to YouTube, YouTube was showing him Manosphere content. And he started spouting stuff because the internet knows that he's a young man and that he can be preyed upon in this way. It is predatory. HS is partnered with a very disreputable brokerage. In the documentary, Louis invests 500 pounds. By the end of the filming, they've lost 2/3 of it. He doesn't care. It's all money to him. And if it's just money, anything is possible. Nothing is forbidden.
Interestingly, I saw TikTok the other day where this young lady decided to run an experiment by herself where she started a TikTok account and the person that she was pretending to be was an 18-year-old boy. She said she didn't try to do anything in particular. She said sometimes she would slow down on a video about masculinity. Within 1 hour, she was seeing Andrew Tate videos.
So Andrew Tate and his brother were charged with sex trafficking in Romania. Luckily, they were pardoned by our president and brought back.
Is that lucky?
But sex trafficking and pimping, that's a big part of their theology. What they preach to these boys is that that's what women are good for and that that's what we're going to use women for.
Fun fact about sex trafficking. I had to learn this for my license recently. I thought that sex trafficking meant moving girls from one location to another, but sex trafficking can happen in your own living room.
The traffic part is kind of a misnomer. What's confusing about this is a lot of times, especially when it's underage people, what's easier to charge people with is moving them across state lines where the age of consent is lower. But sex trafficking just means you have someone and you are selling them to other people.
It can be for sexual reasons, but it can also be for day labor.
Second person they feature is Justin Waller, and he is familiar to me as a good old boy from South Louisiana.
He's very familiar to me as a man who doesn't know how to wear a suit that fits and has puckering in the shoulders and chest at all times.
He thinks it looks great, and he's driving sports cars. He's again selling this image that teenage boys are hungry for.
He is also a known associate of Andrew and Tristan Tate.
He's stoked to talk about his friendship with them.
It turns out they're a couple of really great guys.
Really awesome dudes. They run into some of his fans, and the fans are explaining when you're born as a man, you're born with no value. So you have to create that value.
I wanted to say when I was watching it, sir, you're not wrong.
At the heart of the manosphere, at the heart of misogyny, is the idea that a man is worth what he is getting paid and that that is the only value he brings to relationships.
That paradigm of women are only worth their physical attractiveness and men are only worth money.
And it demeans everybody. It's not good for anybody. I want to say that men are not worth what they're earning. I don't think you're worth anything even if you have money.
Guys, especially Zach, just know that you're worthless.
The idea that women are born with value because we have sexual organs, That's beautiful women.
And it's
Like,
also
that's not most
a
women.
freaking disgusting thing to say. Ew.
Yeah. Justin Waller runs into some fans, and one of them is the kid whose brother has unalived himself that Laura mentioned. If you're a man, you're born with no value. You have to go out and create value. No one's going to invite you, a small spud-like man with no money, on a trip to Miami. They're only going to invite a beautiful woman, but that beautiful woman is being invited for sex reasons. Neither one of them is great.
Yeah, no one's inviting you for your witty repartee. No one's inviting you because you have worth as a human. They're just looking at you as an object that they can manipulate.
Justin Waller is also a big proponent of the idea that the world really took a swing in the wrong direction as far as men being strong, being masculine. They get called toxic, and feminism has done this to us. He also is telling Louis Theroux, men built all these buildings around here. Women didn't build any of this. They didn't invent any of this. And Louis, are you absolutely certain? He's saying what is popular on the internet.
I watched a TikTok where a woman went through that whole area and pointed out all the buildings in that area that he was filming in that were built and designed by women.
That's not the talking point.
That's not the story that they're making up for kids.
The story is that women exist for having sex with and having children with and to raise those children.
God knows Justin Waller's not going to change a diaper.
And Louis suggests, shockingly, that women might be worth more than just their physical appearance, that you might love a woman for her
about? Is he
her personality or her brains, the openness of her heart. That's not what the boys want to hear. All of this stuff is just fantasy fodder for boys your son's age. They want to drive fast cars. They want to be powerful. They want to talk to hot women. They want to get ripped and they want to make money. They're promising that it might not be easy and you might have to work hard at it, but you're going to
all
be
you
able
have to do is follow my 5-step formula
and subscribe to my Patreon and follow my classes. It's all BS. It's a pyramid scheme where the top of the pyramid makes a lot of money off of the bottom of the pyramid.
The top of the pyramid is the Tate brothers, Justin Waller, and I think probably Myron Gaines and HS Tiki. Actually, I think all the guys that were interviewed, Sneeko, probably all of them are at the top, and then everyone else is at the bottom. Although Justin Waller didn't seem like he was that loaded.
He made this big swing about how he was moving to Miami. He wanted to be closer to the Trump family. And then by the end of the documentary, which I don't know that it was like over a year he was shooting, he's moved back to Louisiana. Louis also had a very challenging conversation with his partner, who he's not married to,
Kristen.
What happens if this relationship is over? Justin is talking big about how even if this ended, I have good memories. This is a good time and she's had children for me. But if they break up, she gets nothing.
She'll be homeless.
Yeah.
Because she was saying, well, I trust him. And I'm thinking, why? Why do you trust him?
Why would you trust him? Why would you trust this man who has told you he wants to be in a one-sided
monogamous relationship?
It's
called one-way monogamy. Okay. I'm actually a big proponent of it.
I know you are.
I'm not the one who would be monogamous.
When asked about it, Waller says, well, women don't want to be having sex with a bunch of guys. This is a masculine thing. I was talking with a friend of mine. When you're talking about poly relationships, in my experience, women might want a couple men to divide up the emotional labor. The more men that a woman dates, the more work she creates for herself.
Right. The more they take.
The more women a man dates, the more he receives. He's going to receive emotional labor. He's going to receive house cleaning and care. And to me, the poly thing breaks apart immediately because it only really benefits men.
Like most things. It was really funny with Myron Gaines, the host of the Fresh and Fit podcast, where he tells his girlfriend, Angie Camacho, to go clean the room.
Yeah.
She gives him a look and would he be okay if you went and cleaned the room now? Completely changed his tune as soon as Angie came into frame.
Well, Myron Gaines, one of the few people on this doc who has an intact family, he is constantly shooting his mouth off and then walking it back. He informs Louis that he dictates when he has sex. Oh, so you tell her when it happens? He's like, well, no, if she says I don't feel like it or if I'm on my period, obviously not. But in general,
you're lying.
You're lying.
You're just lying.
He gets very upset with Louis because Louis asks Angie, you're cool with Myron having multiple partners and maybe marrying multiple women? We're going to wait and see on that. She winds up leaving him because she doesn't want that life.
Because he was saying he's never going to marry her. He doesn't want to commit to her completely. And you could see in the video, this is not it.
That's not what I'm in it for.
And this is not what you've told me in private.
Myron also doesn't seem to be doing that well. He has a studio, but he lives there.
And it looks kind of scummy. What's up, bro? I thought you were supposed to be this big deal guy. You have the main room of your home as a podcast studio. You sleep in some weird little room in the back. That's bizarre to me.
He reminded me the most of Howard Stern and this whole generations of shock jock radio guys in the 90s. He has a podcast where he has women on, he humiliates them for their looks. He asks them what they want in a relationship. He lets them know they're delusional.
He's not interviewing women off the street. He is only exclusively talking to sex workers and OnlyFans chicks.
He's interested in humiliating women, shaming them for their sexuality, shaming them for their bodies. And that was Howard Stern playbook day one. Every woman who walked into his studio, he would ask, how much do you weigh? How many men have you had sex with?
And there was a scale built into the floor that he forced women to stand on.
Because that's what a woman is worth. I wound up listening to some clips of this show in the 90s, listening to these women try to live up to his expectations of a regular everyday woman was really gross. Well, I had a baby, but I'm losing the way.
Another thing that really disturbed me about this is the women who are supporting these fools. There's a chick who works the front desk at Myron Gaines's studio, and she's prepping all of the women who are coming in, and she's probably
a producer.
Yeah, she's a producer. How can you sleep at night?
If you truly believe that the only thing is money and that nothing else matters, and also that you're in the cool kids club, you're not like one of them, you're able to separate yourself from the women who are being shamed and victimized.
Also, with the HS Tiki Taki, there was a woman there who I guess was his girlfriend. I don't know what to call her. A lady in a bikini with blonde hair. When this guy is bagging on everything you do every day and all the women you know are doing every day, how do you square it?
When there's celebrity and money involved, women will do insane things. When Sid Vicious died, which was only 30 days after he was arrested for stabbing Nancy Spungen, he had another girlfriend.
It's just because he was hot.
O.J. Simpson was partnered until he died. When the main thing he was known for at that point was murdering his wife. Because of the society we live in and that being partnered and money are the most important things, women will square a lot of circles to be in that position. And it's sad. I agree with you. Last person we talked to in this documentary is Sneeko, who is in many ways the most disturbing. He's been podcasting since he was little. There's a really cute, sad video of him doing Chubby Bunny. He's very worried about satanic celebrities. He's very worried about stuff being put in the water to make you gay or transgender, vigorously anti-Semitic. He believes that the Jews are using vibrations to bring you down. And it's because in this paradigm where the more fringe your idea is, the more popular it is, he's run out of the real basic fringe stuff like women don't invent anything and they shouldn't be allowed to vote. And so he's got to spread out.
Part of the documentary that disturbed me most, Sneeko was, I guess, going to the gas station to buy some snacks, and he is mobbed by probably 10 little boys, 13, 14-year-olds. They just can't get enough of him. And they're saying, yeah, we know he's been kicked off of every social media group because he says horrible stuff, but we're into it. I really saw my son out there and I thought, oh my God, if this happened to him, I think I would just give up. I would just feel like a complete failure.
My old boss got kicked off of every platform. And it wasn't because he was saying that Sam Smith was the devil, but he would do something. He would push some envelope. He would upset somebody. He got kicked off of YouTube a couple times. And that was a big problem because that's where his money came from. I think he was rating people's feet on WikiFeet in a way that he thought was funny. Every female comic knows that you cannot perform on stage in open-toed shoes or flip-flops or, God forbid, barefoot because pics will wind up on WikiFeet.
How does any woman go to a red carpet event? Because those are almost all open-toed.
Those women have just accepted that they're going to be on WikiFeet. There's a comic I know, Jamie Loftus, who was very upset when she found out she had lost her 10 out of 10 rating. On WikiFeet, someone
she has that weird second toe.
People started rating her down because she wasn't appearing in sandals enough.
She was withdrawing.
To bring all this together in whatever way we can, Laura has sent me a TikTok by a creator named Ms. Aisha. She's talking about the core of this, which is that young boys need male role models to emulate and look up to in order to learn how to regulate their own emotions. Girls do it in other ways, but this is an important part of boys' development. And these creators are all taking advantage of that. I think most of these guys, and I'm accepting Sneeko because I think Sneeko is bananas. But the rest of these guys, they're saying things that they half believe or don't believe, but they're doing it just to make content, go viral, and get followers. The kids don't know that. I've already experienced fighting with a 12-year-old on the internet who gave me the classic Justin Waller, who built your house, who built your phone. That's not your thought, dude.
This is the thing that I find really sad. Obviously, they're all misogynist and probably homophobic, but I think it's a little bit tongue in cheek because they know no woman is going to come near them with a 10-foot pole if they talk to them like this. And the thing that's sad to me is the ripple effect that this has had on dating and on society in general.
The self-help podcast that I'm addicted to, a woman called in and said, my husband says he wants to be in a one-way monogamous relationship. And I've never even heard of that. What do you mean? He's been listening to Andrew Tate. Trash the whole man. He can't be saved. We cannot salvage anything out of this. He said he wanted to be non-monogamous. And I said, well, I'm not really into it, but I guess I could start dating other guys. He's like, oh, no, not you. Just me. Throw the whole man away.
I wrote a comment in Ms. Aisha's TikTok, and I will read it to you. This woman said, raising a son, can you explain how to navigate this? And I said, I'm a mother to a son, and I'm also a therapist. I am constantly requiring him to name his emotions, reminding him that he is not the most important person in all of his interactions, checking his internalized misogyny, and exposing him to media about important women, to name a few things that I'm doing.
There are downstream effects. Like in the UK, there's a story about school kids barking at girls in school, blocking doors with their bodies, refusing to talk to female teachers. They are in this stuff. And none of these creators necessarily want that or are directing towards that. I'm just making the content that goes viral. The less and less socially acceptable it is, the more viral it will be.
Because I'm not thinking about the knock-on effect to society in general. I'm not thinking about the fact that more women in 2026 are not choosing to date men, and men are incredibly unsuccessful in the market because of these ideologies and because the way that they've been coached by these men to talk to women. That doesn't work in real life. That is a fiction.
Unless you're talking to people who are going to financially benefit from their interaction with you.
If you are paying the woman, then she will let you talk to her in those ways. If you want to find a sex worker who will let you speak to her in a completely insulting and rude way, you can have that. But the average woman is not going to tolerate this sort of garbage. I think it all started with Mystery, but the thing that Mystery E did was he actually acted kindly towards women and acted respectfully towards women. He did manipulate them, but ultimately you could tell that he was a big fan of women, that he didn't dislike them.
The most harmful thing, I think, in this whole package is the idea that it's giving to young men that if you're muscular and have a lot of stolen money through fraudulent businesses, you will be universally loved by women. Apart from Angie and Kristen, and Angie, of course, has gotten out and is speaking on TikTok. I'm fine. Thank you. I'm with a guy who loves me now. Thumbs up. None of these guys are partnered. They're attracting women who are also creators. We are spinning out into this universe. Female comic referred to it as it's all bringer show. We all are forced to make our own platforms to create our own content and appeal to our fan base. And it's a very toxic environment because everything you say is going to be held as gospel by these little turds.
You're giving them the impression that this is reality, that this is actually what you're doing every day. And in reality, the part that I liked was when HS Tiki Taki's mom, Elaine Sullivan, is telling him, you better wipe the floor. This looks terrible. She knows who Louis Theroux is because she's older. And she's saying, this is a big deal. You need
to sharpen up.
Clean up. And he was like, okay, mom, yeah, that's reality. That is the reality of HS Tiki Taki. When he's got his quote unquote Jewish cameraman filming everything he does, that's not reality. That is made up.
Early in the film, Louis chastises him for speaking into the camera. This is not social media content. You're talking to me. Pretend the camera isn't there. He's like, oh, yeah. The reality of HS Tiki Taki is his mom worked multiple jobs and worked late into the night to afford to bring him up in private schools and give him the best life that she possibly could. And this is what he does with it. He is scamming people and humiliating women.
All of these boys really made me fearful. Virginia, what are your final thoughts on this Louis Theroux's Manosphere documentary?
As I think about who I'm talking to, obviously on this podcast, we are not talking to teenage boys. And we're usually not talking to young men and women in their teens and early 20s. I think I'm talking to moms and aunts and grandmas. When you start hearing these sound bites coming out of these kids' mouths. Challenge them. Women have actually invented quite a lot of stuff. There's no genetic predisposition to stay home and have kids. There's actually nothing inferior about women. These ideas take on their own life. One idiot says it, millions of idiots witness that. It just becomes part of the culture.
And I think it's always happened. It's just that in the past, there were a small handful of TV stations and networks and movie studios that had all the power. They were creating this one thing. Now, because of YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, anybody can do it. I'm not going to be limited in what I can say and do. Howard Stern got off of regular radio because he wanted to do more inappropriate crap and they wouldn't let him.
Anthony Cumia of Opie and Anthony got kicked off of radio for being incredibly vulgar and racist about a woman in a subway station. And he had to break off and do his indie thing. We don't have that protection anymore. YouTube and Instagram and TikTok all have some kind of rules, but people are always figuring out ways around it and ways to say the thing outside the thing. If you do know a young man, tell him this is a scam. They are taking advantage of you. You're using you for clicks. And as HS said, it doesn't really matter what choices I make. If I'm making money, my kids are going to be happy. I'm going to have money for future generations. If I just done good things, I never would have blown up on the internet.
And he's probably not wrong, sadly.
They're not expecting these ideas to be taken to heart, but they don't care if they are. You're not lying. You're not willfully telling an untruth. You just don't care if what you say is true or not.
Fake news.
Laura, what are your final thoughts on this episode?
I had a really tough time watching it. I kept seeing TikToks about it, and I was such a fan of Louis Theroux, and I am so secretly obsessed with the Manosphere. I felt like I owed it to myself to watch it. I also wanted to watch it before there were a ton of spoilers on TikTok. I plowed through this actually before you told me you were doing this episode. All of them actually arrived at a similar conclusion. HS Tiki-Taki and Myron Gaines and Justin Waller, and I think also Sneeko at one point, they were all talking about the unfairness of the system, how exploitative the system of capitalism is, how hard it has been. At one point, Justin Waller is in Louisiana and he's driving by the trailer park that he grew up in. It's pretty sad and talking about what a difficult life that was for him. Just when you see they're about to get it, they're about to understand that this whole system is a scam, they take a left turn and start pointing the finger at women. Like capitalism and patriarchy are women's fault. It was really sad to watch all these different people completely miss the point.
It's true that regular people are not given a path to success, that your 9-to-5 is never going to make you rich. The billionaires that you emulate, their parents were millionaires and their parents were millionaires. For the most part, 99% of the time. Just like the Republican Party has pivoted towards immigrants, it's women who are holding you down. It's women who are limiting you. You can behave however you want. If you are rich and ripped, women are going to have to put up with you. You're going to run into that truth really, really quickly.
Referring back to Louis Theroux's Bangkok marriage episode, the only women who will accept you treating them that way are women who are completely impoverished and have no other options and no other choices. The average American woman is not going to be picking up what you're putting down, and they're going to leave. And I think Justin Waller's partner, she's a pick-me. And on some level, Angie Camacho was a pick-me, but I think it's still got to be too much. And most women are just not going to tolerate it. And you're going to end up alone. And if that's what you want, then I guess go ahead. Most of these men and boys want companionship. They want connection. They want love. They're being sold this bill of goods that these idiots are going to love you. These idiots are going to be there to support you. They won't.
It's leading to really weird expectations of femaleness, that just being a woman with a pretty face and love in her heart is not good enough. What I deserve is a hairless sex worker who lives on juice bar content. The obvious irony of the Manosphere is that all of this looks maxing, roiding out, and creating these huge bodies is to attract women, but their behavior immediately repulses ordinary women. Who is this for? And the answer is it's for other men. It's to impress other men.
There was a creator who I saw talking about this, and he was a homosexual gentleman, and he said watching the Manosphere to him was the gayest crap he'd ever seen. Why would a heterosexual person want to just watch another guy working out all the time? Why is that interesting to anyone? I think he might have the point.
If you are a young man looking for male role models, these are the most male role models you can get, but it's not going to serve you. You're not going to look like them because you're not going to be able to spend 10 hours in the gym. You're not going to make the money that they say you're going to make in brokerages because those are all crooked. The way they're making money is off of you, and they're lying to you.
You are the product. You are their sacred cow that they're milking. They're not really making any money off of their weird fake diet things and whatnot, all their subscriptions. Really, ultimately, the big place where they're making money is off of your eyeballs.
They're making money off of your interest in women, fitness, and finance.
So, Virginia, if somebody wanted to break away from the clutches of the Manosphere and go see a woman do some comedy, where would they go about finding out more about you?
You can find my calendar on my website, which is www.bedinia.com. And I promote every show that I do on my Instagram, which is also Bedinia. If you Google Virginia Jones comedy, what comes up should have something to do with me. And that's what I paid those people for. If you would like to subscribe to the podcast, we would really, really love it. We've taken on a lot of new subscribers and listeners in the last couple of months, and we're very happy you're here. If you would like to write us a review on any platform, YouTube, Spotify, Audible, Apple, that would be great. If you would like to write us a letter with a suggestion or a thought or just a compliment, you can write us at hello@mysistersatherapist.com. If you would like to promote a product that is vegan and does not actively take advantage of women and female labor, you can pitch it to us at hireus@mysistersatherapist.com. Laura, where can people find you on the internet should they wish to do so?
They can find me at lauraryan.org. They can also find me on my incredible TikTok account. I am Laura Ryan. If you're interested in finding out more about the show, you can go to our Instagram page, My Sister the Therapist Instagram.
Laura, now's the time in the show where you sometimes share a positive review or email that someone has sent to us. Do you have something to share this week?
I do. I have an email from Courtney. Courtney said, "Dear Laura and Virginia, I'm listening to the NET episode now. OMG. I always think a trash bag is an animal or a dead person. I actually thought it tonight when I saw one on the side of the road. This is a perfect episode. Way to go describing the difference between this and EMDR. As an NET practitioner, I get asked this all the time. What a fantastic episode. I am sharing it with all my patients. Thanks, Courtney." Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you, Courtney. And in the words of our spiritual founder, who was never part of the Manosphere, although he was kind of misogynist, Billy Ray Valentine, Capricorn, as he said, "We can make it, baby."
Me and you.